Record. It's our last day today. Oh my gosh. You made it. You made it. Only cried maybe just once. Maybe. You did it. We wrapped up the material. Last day. Couple of notes, very important. We are in a computer lab for the final exam. Okay, so it is on a school computer, so it might be a good idea if you haven't logged on to a school computer just to figure it out. I will show up early so that you'll have time to get kind of logged in. I'll have instructions for you, but just to take some of the pressure off of the actual final exam, maybe go practice on a library computer or something, just so you know how to log in, especially how to get to your Moodle page, right? But I'll have instructions too, but it's always nice to be in control. So our final exam is, of course, on Monday. Oh my gosh, this coming Monday. Week. December 12th from 6 to 9. Kind of late. I always find that 6 to 9 exams are kind of cozy. Like, oh, it's so late. I can hardly see anything to do this test. Anyways, it is what it is. It is in E407 and E408. Obviously, you're only in one of those, but I can't remember which section is in which room. That's fine. I will be there, obviously, to tell you which one's which. And so these are computer labs, but kind of nice. In the E building, that's snazzy. Right? Those rooms are nice. 4th floor, it's gonna have hopefully some sort of view. I don't know, all things that matter for a final exam, right? Does it have a view though? I don't know, it doesn't hurt. So these are computer labs, which means that you'll be working on a school computer. Especially in this section, I'm finding, probably because you've been running your computers all day and there's a lot of charging issues. So this way we don't have to deal with that. And also internet can be hardwired, right? And so it's fine. So you'll be working on a school computer. Highlight that, right? Just so we're, hey, it's all SpongeBob-y. Never really watched SpongeBob after my time, I guess, but still funny. Still know who it is. All right. Nothing to it but to do it. I've got a final exam outline. I give you an idea of all the questions. The order will be kind of jumbled, right? But all these question types are what you should expect. Any questions about this stuff before we get into that? Okay, that's okay. So our final exam outline. Here we go. Starting from the very, very beginning, and I have these on here for a few reasons. One, we have to, but also I like to have them on there as kind of a way to boost your grades. So these questions from quiz 1, when you go back to them, they should feel really, really easy, right? And so the first one we'll start with is the 5-number summary. With the 1.5 IQR rule, for outliers. Okay. Means I give you a small data set. You have to find the median, the quartiles, the minimum and the maximum. That's your 5-number summary. Find the interquartile range. Use the interquartile range to find if there are outliers on either end, right? And then identify those outliers if there are any, right? So that's from quiz 1. And now that the quizzes are all adjusted and marked, you should be able to go in and do the quizzes for ungraded practice, right? As well as the assignments. So you can go back in and you can practice those. Because what you'll find is all of these you've seen on a quiz at some point, or at least these types of questions, right? We're going to be really good at identifying numerical and categorical variables at this point. So I do have one of those on here. Same thing from quiz 1. So identify numerical and or categorical variables.
And or.
Well, because I can't remember. And I think it's probably randomized. I think it's or, but I'm not willing to commit. Could be 2 parts. Which ones? If I give you a list of variables.
Can't be numerical and categorical.
No. But if you have multiple variables, you
Very confused about that. Or that's like, what is this?
probably no and. But I'm just covering my bases because I don't remember exactly what the question looks like. It's just me being vague. Okay. How about this? No. But I'll remove the cross because, or the X because I was being vague for a reason I don't remember. It'll be one or the other. But. Which was also from quiz 1. We did little things like if I give you a distribution, right? So if I give you a histogram, for example, then you can use that to tell me if it's normal or non-normal, right? You should probably have the left skewed, right skewed under control, right? Just to cover our bases. And then based off of the shape, then what's the appropriate measure of center and spread, right? And so if I have a normal distribution or approximately normal, I can go ahead and I can use the mean and the standard deviations, right? If I have a non-normal distribution, I should be using the median and the interquartile range, right? This is all from way back, but hopefully, I mean, we've seen a lot in this course, so hopefully it's ringing a bell. So from a distribution, so the distribution shape and the appropriate center and spread. Which is also from quiz 1. Moving on to quiz 2. I'm gonna give you a Venn diagram. It's either gonna be a 2 or a 3 set Venn diagram. Ooh. Fill it in, find probabilities. So a 2 or no, or 3 set. I just start writing and or for everything. And or 2 or 3 set Venn diagram to find probabilities. That's from quiz 2.
Size, color, and band.
I'm like, or maybe it has, well, what's another kind of similar thing? It basically, but replace it with something very similar. Maybe it's for dog breeds now. Size, ranges, color. There's only so much you can do. Or maybe it does have, what was it? Brand, color, yeah. Size, sure. Then a tree diagram with conditional probabilities, right? But that's as hard as we're gonna go into the probability section, right? I don't like probabilities, which makes it so that you guys don't like probabilities, so I'm to blame here, but I'm not gonna go crazy on the probabilities here. So it's a tree diagram for conditional probabilities, right? And then you can use that tree to find whatever probability I'm asking for. Okay. After tree diagrams, we moved into Z-scores, right? So then we introduced the normal distribution, and of course we're gonna do something there. We're gonna just use the normal distribution to find probabilities, which is really Z-score questions. Wow, they sound so mad. Last day of classes, I'm out of here. So it's going to be a Z-score question, but I'll call it a normal distribution. To find probabilities. And I'll follow it up with Z-scores. Right. If, what's one of the ones that I have on there? Gerbil weights follow a normal distribution with a mean this and a standard deviation this. What's the probability of finding a gerbil that weighs less than blank? Right, that kind of thing. How much do the heaviest 10% of gerbils weigh? Right, all those Z-score questions, which was also on quiz 2. This next one, so then we did the Z-score questions, and then we talked about the binomial. We also talked about the Poisson, the geometric, and I feel like another one, but I can't remember because it's not on the final exam. We're gonna do a binomial question, okay? The only thing is that I should have checked actually, but I left this morning's class and I forgot all about it. I don't think on quiz 2, I made you do a normal approximation to the binomial, right? So if I'm doing many trials, then I can use the normal approximation, because I think from what I remember, we ended the binomial and then we had the quiz almost immediately after, and I didn't want to do that. If I did, then fine, you're prepared. But this is the one that I kind of want you to check out. The binomial distribution with a normal approximation. from what I remember, and I could be way off track here, I didn't make you do a normal approximation on the quiz, on quiz 2, but you will have to do it here now. Okay. Good. Moving on to quiz 3, I'll start it on a fresh page here. This is where I get a little bit vague, okay? Because this is when we started with hypothesis testing and confidence intervals, right? This one we got into inference, was after quiz 2. And for quiz 3, we focused on proportions. Quiz 4, we focused on means, right? That's all we did, but now there's a mashup. And so for the 8th question, it's going to be either a 1 sample proportion question or a 2 sample proportion question. Okay, and so a 1 or 2 sample proportions. If it's a 1 sample proportion, right? Because you know that 2 sample proportions require a lot more work than 1 sample proportion. So if it is a 1 sample proportion, you would also have to do a sample size calculation, which we did on quiz 3. So this one, if it's a 1 sample proportion question, it would include a sample size calculation. And in terms of this one here, very vague, it's either a confidence interval or a hypothesis test. Which is what we focused on quiz 3. So 1 or 2 sample proportions, right? And then the last part of that chapter was the chi-squareds, right? What if I have more than 2 proportions? Then what do I use? It's going to be a chi-squared. I'm going to be nice here. Well, I guess I think I'm being nice and tell you that it is going to be a chi-squared test of independence, which means you're going to have a 2-way table. Yeah. Chi-squared test of independence. Right. Whenever it's more than 2 proportions, you're going to have a chi-squared, but a test of independence means that it's a 2-way table. Is this variable independent of this variable? Right. And that's your hypothesis test. It's from the quiz 3 material, but I think I got you guys to do a chi-squared test, a goodness of fit test on the quiz. So this would be kind of an extension. Then we move into means. Okay. 2 questions from the means. And so question 10 and 11, let's see, are going to be from the 1 sample mean, your paired data, or 2 independent sample means. And it's either a confidence interval or hypothesis test. So this one's extra big. Oops. One sample mean, paired data. Or 2 sample means. It's either a confidence interval or a hypothesis test. And this is from quiz 4. on quiz 4, you saw one of each, right? So do some combination of those, right? If I made you do a confidence interval, you could do a hypothesis test. If I made you do a hypothesis test, you could do a confidence interval, just so you can cover all your bases. Yeah. All right. And, oh, and I do want to highlight here that this is 2 questions, right? There is an ANOVA question on there. ANOVA for more than 2 means. Which is also from quiz 4. And then last but not least, there's a regression question, and we haven't been tested on that yet in a quiz, right? But you do have assignments, and so there's a regression question. And that's going to be from assignments 17 and 18. Some resources that you'll have in the final exam. You'll have the formula sheet. I'll print off the formula sheets, the full formula sheets. It's going to be the one, the final formula sheet is the one attached to assignment 18. So if you want to kind of get to know it, but I'll bring printed copies because otherwise it's very hard to kind of keep track of all those formulas, just in case you want them. Okay, and so the formula sheet from assignment 18 will be given. And I will bring printed copies as well. Yeah. You'll have that probability calculator, but I know for the beginning, right, we were using Z tables and the T tables for the critical values for the confidence intervals. So if you prefer to use those, I'll bring some of those printed as well, just so you can have the printed copies if that's what you prefer. So you'll have the probability calculator, which kind of replaces Z tables. Maybe I'll say Z and T tables. Just for good measure, I'll do them as a pop-up as well in the final exam, but I'll have some printed copies. And say also some printed copies, right? As a pop-up, if you don't want to use the tables, then and you want to just use the probability calculator, that's fine, right? But if you want them as a pop-up, then you can. And I do have a couple more notes, but that's it for my outline. I guess these are part of those notes, but squish it all in there. So, like I said, different order of questions, right? Kind of mumbo jumbo, but they're all there, and you'll have seen almost all types in other scenarios. right? Except potentially this normal approximation, which I think you saw on an assignment, but not necessarily on the quiz. Mhm. Was it on the quiz?
Sorry, I meant assignment. I'm trying to find it. I went through it yesterday and that's not really.
Where you have more than kind of a reasonable number of hand calculations and you use a Z-score instead. If not, I will go through and make sure that you have a practice one. Otherwise, I'll post one. Yeah. Or two. Wow. Well, if it's one, then you know it has to be very, very similar. Just a couple of notes. Because, so as we've noticed, sometimes the marking is a little bit weird. And for the quizzes, I do go through and I check them. But if you're finding that I've written, usually if I adjust marks, no, always if I adjust marks, I'll write in the feedback box. So +1 for whatever, and then I give you a reason. So if you're finding that that hasn't been done, because I'm human, I try not to, if I say that I'm going to give you, then I give it to you right away. But I mean, sometimes I slip up and I'm sure. And so what I want you to do is just go through and review your quizzes and review your assignments as well, because now that they're closed, you can see the solutions. And if you feel like, oh, okay, I probably should have gotten a mark from that, then let me know and I'll have a look and I'll fix it. Okay, so just make sure that all those marks are basically not missing marks that you should have. Okay. So here I'll say, please review the quizzes and assignments. Might be good to flip through them anyways. And assignments to make sure you're not missing marks that you should have. You're not missing marks that you should have. What I do on the final exam is if there's a wrong answer, then I go through and I check it and I just I put a lot of time into making sure that you get all those grades, right? Because you don't get to review your final exam, you just have to take it from me, right? And so I want to make sure that those grades are good. It helps that I've programmed all the questions from scratch. All these other ones come from kind of different question banks and stuff like that, right? So sometimes I haven't spent that much time looking over the code, but the final exam, I'm feeling pretty good. And but I do look through them anyways. And that's when it's helpful if you've done a calculation, if you just got to jot it down somewhere, just the values that you used on your written work that you hand in, right? Then I can look and say, oh, okay, well, that's good. Yep. Keep going. It's been kind of confusing in the quizzes because it shows you a grade at the end, but there's all these written portions. And so just so that there's not a mass panic attack, I'm not going to show your grades until I've actually marked the written work. Okay, so no marks will be shown until I have marked the written portion. Right, so because they keep throwing people off anyways, and they don't mean anything, right? There's tons of marks that you have typed in the box and you can't get any marks for those, right? So no marks will be shown at the end. Of the final exam. Okay. Marks will be available once I have marked the written portions. Okay. So I mark the written portions, of course, and then what I do in the back end is I make adjustments, things like shifting a missed quiz or a lower quiz to the final exam. I do that outside of Moodle, so you're not going to see that. But of course, I also can't make that shift until you've written the final exam and I have a final exam grade, right? And so usually I get these kind of frantic emails saying, hey, you were going to shift the weight over and I don't see it. And I will do that, right? But I do it because doing it in Moodle is nuts. So I just export to Excel and I do it there. And then I post the final grade to be submitted is usually what I call it. Okay. And so that's going to be just kind of everything adjusted, right? And that's the one that I'm going to submit. Now, what I want you to do is do your own grade calculations. Grade calculations are just weighted means, right? So you can do that. And if my number matches what your number is, then I think we are in agreement, right? Whether you like it or not, that's your final grade, right? So just make sure that it matches what you have on your end. What I do is I send out an email and then I give you 24 hours to get in touch with me if it doesn't match what you have, right? Because that's something that we need to fix. But if I've submitted to the registrar already, then it's a lot of work to kind of take it back. So I give you the chance to go through it, make sure that, okay, yep, that's it, that matches what I have. And then I submit it, because otherwise it's just a real mess. Okay. At that point, it is too late to do any sort of makeup, anything. It's over. Okay, so if you're missing grades, there's nothing we can do about that, but it's just to make sure that that everything matches what you think you should have. Okay. So how do I say that? I will send out an announcement. Once the final exams are marked. Oops. And I have adjusted your final grades. This building's falling apart. And I have adjusted your final grades. Okay. So what I want you to do is make sure the final grade to be submitted is usually what I call it, kind of pretty straightforward. Make sure the final grade to be submitted matches your calculations. Okay. So a little bit of work on your part besides studying for the final exam, right? Make sure that the grades that I have are good. But then also what I put out there, just make sure that it matches what you have on your end. Yeah. And that's all I've got. Does anyone have any questions for me? So a huge no. Yeah. Hit me.
How do you expect like people like to finish the exam like noticeably earlier than the time limit, or like?
Yeah, I would say it's a 2-hour exam. Yeah, there. I've used the same format in the past, and time has not been an issue.
Okay.
Unlike some of our other quizzes where I get a little overzealous. But yeah, so this one, I know it's gonna work. Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's a 2-hour exam, but with a little bit of wiggle room. An hour worth, to be exact. Any other questions?
If you have questions about the quiz, sorry, the quiz is the assignments.
Yeah.
for Mark.
Yeah.
How would you like us to let you know?
If you send me an email, that's the best way because my inbox is my to-do list. So, and then if you just kind of say A4, Q3, you can shorthand it like that. I'll know what you mean, right? Yeah, so you don't have to do screenshots or anything like that because I'll just go into your assignment and look at it. So don't worry about that. But yeah, just tell me where to go and then I'll have a look and I'll adjust it. Yeah. But that's a good, email if you find anything. Email me. I sent an email to the universe. Feel like there was a follow-up.
Yeah, for the probability proportion one sample meaning stuff, are they all GeoGebra friendly? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will make it so. And even if they aren't off the bat, you won't see it, but I'll make like I go through. Usually I have the probability calculator on the side and then I check it just to make sure that you.
Questions where you give us a standard error instead of standard deviation, you have to go into that story. Do it manually out.
No. No, the only time you might be given the standard error is if you do a sample size calculation, but then usually I say you want the margin of error to be 0.03, for example, right? Which is the critical value times the standard error, right? Yeah, but that's the only time, right? Yeah. No. Yeah, I think there's one where it's already done. Kind of the S over root n, for example, the standard error. And that throws people off because it's not you think it's a standard deviation, but it's not. Yeah, no, nothing like that. I'm not out to get you. It's just, it's a lot of material, right? So, yeah. Any other questions? Then I thank you for a wonderful term. And I'll be around all week and probably the weekend as well. So if you do have any questions that come up, we can meet in person here or we can meet on Zoom and let's just get those cleared up. So just let me know.
For binomial questions, I don't think there's one that you're talking about. And if there is, I don't know what it is.
Okay. I will have a look at that. I'll write myself a reminder here. None of them have one. Okay. Let's see here. You know what? I've got the technology. Oh. It's because I put it in 9B, which I never posted. Because I didn't want to cloud your brains. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yes, you are so right. And I'll post up just one for practice so you can see. Or two, probably.
And there's no trick questions except you didn't post or didn't tell us about that pretty long there.
Well, I guess besides this normal approximation, we did talk about it in class, but I never gave you an assignment or anything on it. So that feels rude. So I'll give you some quick questions to work through. Right? But it's basically when you feel like, oh, that's way too many hand calculations to be doing, then you can use the normal approximation. with the mean and the standard deviation to find probabilities
Okay.
instead.
So I can just debiome sort.
Yes. Once the trials get large enough, I think it does do a normal approximation.
Actually different.
No, it'll work.
uh,
D binom, P binom. What's the
it's,
difference?
everything.
Yeah, right? Yeah, those will still work. Yeah, you're good. All right. Any other questions before I stop this recording? Okay, then goodbye.